I love video games, but I've only ever really played 4 or 5 properly in my entire life. The other day I was sick, and so in boredom, I stumbled upon a massive Borderlands sale. My dad has been playing the games for the past 14 years, and it's always puzzled me how he doesn't get bored, or even why he's so passionate about these games in the first place. So I started the very first game in the series, Borderlands, which released in 2009. And within the first 30 seconds of the game, as Marcus tells the story of Pandora and the mysterious vault and its treasures, I bought the entire series. I was hooked, deciding to beat every Borderlands game for the first time. I wanted to make this experience into a video to really understand this bizarre world that's so incredibly captivating. Seriously, there is a certain feeling to Borderlands that is very endearing. Somehow within this dirty, gross and hostile world, there is a weird beauty. And after watching the new movie and even playing through parts of Borderlands 3, it's clear passion and a genuine attempt of making good art led to the creation of these amazing games. Borderlands. One of my favorite things about this game is that you barely know anything about, well, anything. Even when the game ends, I was left going, what the hell just happened? From a first time playing point of view, the game is so bizarre and the world is so fascinating. Nothing is really explained to you, and the only information you get is very secretive and limited. There are 4 different characters you can play as, all with different preferred weapons and skills. All these characters have traveled to this planet, Pandora, in search for the mysterious vault that most people don't believe even exists. But we are guided and reassured by this mysterious guardian angel that the vault does exist, and she's going to show us the way. There's just a couple problems. The planet is filled with bandits, the land is barren, and monsters roam amongst the dirt. Then on top of these bandits and their leaders, we have to face the very rich private Atlas Corporation, who are also in search of the vault. There's some very memorable characters along this journey who help us, such as Dr. Zed, who is totally not Dr. Ned in disguise, because that would be pretty bad considering he accidentally infected the people of this island with a virus that turned them into zombies. And the funniest part is, it really isn't Dr. Zed in a terrible disguise, but rather his actual evil twin brother, who ends up turning into a monster himself. I love the DLC of Borderlands, by the way. TK Baha, the blind man who lost his wife, his eyesight and leg to Scar, and eventually was killed by bandits. We also have Patricia Tanis, the crazy science lady, and of course Crazy L, who I brought Skag meat to after killing a massive alien monster. And yes, that's how addictive even the side missions are. After I beat the main game, I delivered Skag meat to Crazy L. In fact, I was constantly roped into numerous side missions which I loved. I don't think I've ever played a faster paced video game that hooked me deep into the trenches. It's literally non-stop action 24/7, and the gunplay is really fun too, especially with the skill trees. So in conclusion, as Mordecai, I first gained the trust of the people by killing raiding bandits and skags, then went bulldozing through the bandit leaders such as Bonehead, Nine Toes, Sledge, Mad Mel, King Wee Wee, Crom, Janus Cobb, Taylor Cobb, and Baron Flint. Throughout this journey of non-stop war, I gathered the 4 vault key pieces, and I gave them to Tanis to build the vault key, and she did so only for it to be unfortunately stolen by the Atlas Corporation. And so I raced Atlas to the vault as these ancient Iridian guardians tried to protect it. Atlas beat us and opened the vault, but died as a result. The vault this whole time was actually a prison built by the Iridians to stop an intergalactic menace known as the Destroyer. We killed this Destroyer, but don't quite understand the ramifications of what we've really just done. Borderlands 2. Handsome Jack, Tiny Tina, trains. Wait, I got some PTSD for a moment. After beating Borderlands 2 for the first time, I now understand how my dad constantly replays this game. Firstly, there are 6 different characters, which all bring different styles of gameplay. Secondly, the skill trees make it so each character has 3 different ways of being played. And thirdly, Handsome Jack. Before playing this game, I kept hearing that name, Handsome Jack, but now I get it. He definitely is one of my new favorite characters, full stop. He's by far the funniest video game character I've ever come across. And this is only elevated by the pre-sequel. The gunplay was also certainly upgraded in this game. I played as Krieg and his buzzsaw was insanely fun to use. Throughout every Borderlands, the gameplay is always just a blast. But for me, the biggest upgrade from Borderlands 1 was the side missions. I was absolutely hooked by them every time. such as nursing the skag back to life and eventually killing his mother. Also finding a dead body and tracing the quest clues to a cursed gun that is insanely powerful but slows you down to a turtle speed was pretty cool as well. Also sending flowers to Handsome Jack's grandmother for him and then realizing it's because he wants to make sure these bandits killed her was quite funny, though a bit sad when you find out she abused Jack. Killing Handsome Jack's girlfriend in a standoff was also great.
Did you actually just kill my girlfriend?
But my favorite side mission hands down is the tea party with Tiny Tina, where you torture a psycho who killed her parents. This mission pretty much sums up the absolute ridiculous nature of Borderlands. Oh, and Handsome Jack also wants you to jump off a cliff.
Aryan Suicide Prevention Hotline. Handsome Jack regrets to inform you that you are a coward.
This game starts 5 years after Borderlands 1. There's news that Pandora has a second, larger vault, and so more vault hunters travel to Pandora to find it. There's just one massive issue, and also a twist in the story. You see, our guardian angel, the character who guided us to the vault in the first game, was actually working for Handsome Jack the entire time. In fact, she's his daughter, and a siren. Jack wanted us to open the vault for him so he could reap the rewards. And he did. The Atlas Corporation was severely weakened, and a very valuable mineral could now be mined from the ground after the vault opened. This iridium made Jack very powerful. Also, he uses the Destroyer's Eye to rain a laser beam down on Pandora from his Hyperion space station, from which he rules over all of Pandora. Only the rebellion ran by Roland, the Crimson Raiders, were fighting against Jack's tyrannical reign and search for the second vault. So some more vault hunters land on Pandora, and on their train ride through Pandora's wasteland, Jack sabotages the journey, and so we awaken to the last remaining Claptrap in existence. With the help of Claptrap, we join up with the Crimson Raiders, which eventually includes all the originals, Lilith, Mordecai, and Brick. Brick had actually become a bandit leader of a group called the Slags, from which some of their members were very weird.
Brains everywhere! Not the knee, not the arm, not the spine! Face! It has to happen! Shoot me in the face!
Getting through that door, that'll only open for Jack.
Let me get the door for you.
Grouping up with the original characters and getting to know them a lot better was honestly something I really enjoyed in this game. Having Sanctuary as a home that's capable of flying into the sky was great. Missions and characters were plentiful in the city, as all the original characters from the first game had moved to Sanctuary. Even Crazy Earl. Eventually, Angel actually turns onto our side and helps us against Jack. Unfortunately, this means we have to kill Angel to stop Jack. This of course enrages Jack, and as a result, Roland is killed and Lilith is captured. Roland's death was genuinely very surprising and kind of sad. But we do end up tracking down Jack and the vault and avenging our fallen comrade. However, Jack managed to open the vault, and so we have to fight another universe-ending threat. I had an immense amount of fun during this fight. I personally thought this vault monster was really epic. With the warrior dead, I can finally finish off Handsome Jack. But just like at the end of Halo 2, we learn there aren't just 2 vaults, but many more. Borderlands 2 is genuinely an exceptional game, and it's quite a big game. One thing I don't hear people talk about enough is how well these games are actually made. I did not run into a single glitch or issue the entire time I played all of these games. Everything ran very, very smoothly. Oh, and also I beat Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep, which is an amazing D&D inspired DLC. Truly, one of my favorite parts of Borderlands is getting to play the DLCs. They're always a great experience. But really, at the core of this extravagant fantasy DLC is a sad story. Through fantasy and its infinite possibilities, Tiny Tina comes to terms with the death of Roland. She glorifies his character in this imaginary world and accepts his death in the real world.
Goodbye.
And in the days to come, they'd think of their fallen friends, of the adventures they shared, both real and imaginary. And they'd remember that no matter how bad things got, they were never truly alone so long as they had each other.
I love you guys.
And then Claptrap said something stupid and ruined everything.
Borderlands the pre-sequel. Now, I was really confused at first with what the hell this game even is, and the start really didn't help. You see, I chose to play as Handsome Jack, not knowing that this game is all about Handsome Jack. I was very confused at first when I was interacting with myself, but throughout the game you learn you're actually a body double of Handsome Jack, originally named Timothy, and plastic surgically made into Jack's appearance. The hilarious part about this is I might have killed this body double in Borderlands 2, as you do have to kill a body double of Jack. But I was very glad I chose Jack because the dialogue between the two is hilarious.
Damn it, someone's got to stay back and launch the pods manually. I'd suggest my body double, but he's way too hot to die. Getting uncomfortable now.
So yeah, this game takes place in between Borderlands 1 and 2, and it follows Handsome Jack before he becomes the CEO of Hyperion. At this stage, Jack is not powerful, but he is very ambitious. He's looking for a vault on the moon of Pandora. He sent out messages to Vault Hunters to help him in this process, and randomly this includes Claptrap and also his body double. As the Vault Hunters make their way to the space station, their ship becomes under attack by the Lost Legion, who want to destroy the moon and its vault. This story is actually really interesting because it's not very typical. Colonel Zarpedon, I think that's how you pronounce it, leader of the Lost Legion, has actually been inside the vault on the moon, and inside she saw the future. She learnt the moon needs to be destroyed in order to stop anyone from opening the vault and releasing the warrior. Colonel Zarpedon was trying to save the universe, whilst we're unintentionally putting it in threat of being destroyed. But the thing is, Jack isn't overtly portrayed as bad in the beginning of this game.
Heart's pounding, never been shot at before. Kind of fun, actually.
In fact, I felt sympathy for him. He gets treated poorly by his Hyperion higher-ups, and he even risks his life at one point to save ours. Also, he's trying to save the moon from being destroyed, in turn trying to save all the moon's inhabitants. But progressively throughout the game, this changes. We begin to see the side of Handsome Jack that exists in Borderlands 2. He murders and gets a thrill out of it, and he kills all of his scientists because he's paranoid that one of them is a spy. He also treats self-aware AI like slaves. Definitely the best thing in this game is the gameplay. I do miss Pandora a bit, but the low gravity adds another skill level that you can destroy enemies with. Seriously, floating up, boosting, and then slamming down, then quickly evading was some of the most fun I had with Borderlands gameplay. This unicorn shotgun was one of my favorite guns I picked up in the entire journey also. But I will say Borderlands 3's guns and gameplay really is the pinnacle of the series. Also, I love how Borderlands do character. This Gladstone scientist with the New Zealand accent is such a typical chill and nice New Zealander, though he invented the Constructor, one of the strongest and most brutal enemies in Borderlands.
Why would I cross you, bruv? You're trying to save the moon and you seem like a stand-up guy. Plus, you're about to help me complete my life's work.
Throughout this game, we also do some missions with Roland, Lilith, and Moxie, helping us to stop Zarpedon from destroying the moon. Eventually, we do kill Zarpedon and the really cool massive guardian of the vault, allowing us to enter the vault. However, it is completely empty except for a floating symbol. Jack makes contact with the symbol and it begins to show him the future. But suddenly, it is cut off because Lilith betrays Jack, destroying the vault symbol, burning it into his face. Jack was already pretty disturbed, but this betrayal and this affliction on his appearance, this causes him to go completely insane, swearing vengeance on Lilith and all the bandits of Pandora, which essentially just includes everyone who isn't Hyperion. I love Jack's arc from inexperienced corporate worker to full psychotic tyrant, but there's another story within this game that's just as good. Where did all the Claptraps go? In the original Borderlands, there's heaps roaming Pandora, but in Borderlands 2, only Claptrap himself remains. Well, the Claptastic Voyage DLC covers how Jack killed all the robots and how Claptrap himself survived. This DLC is by far the hardest thing I achieved in all of Borderlands. The numerous boss fights are very difficult and the psychology of Claptrap himself is very interesting. After Jack kills Tacita, I think that's how you pronounce it, the CEO of Hyperion, and makes himself the leader of the corporation, he finds out some very important information has been stored within Claptrap's code. So Jack digitizes us to go collect this information inside of Claptrap. We go through Claptrap's suppressed memories and have to fight denial extensions to find the truth. And the truth is pretty grim. Claptrap only ever tries to do good, but he's made constant and horrendous mistakes in the past. He accidentally blew a stadium off a cliff and burned a church down with all its wounded inside, which is pretty damn insane. Genuinely one of the worst things you could possibly do, and he did it on accident, so I can see why he denied that. We even collect his hope and self-esteem from Jack, as Jack had stolen it. But through trying to retrieve the important information, we are manipulated by Claptrap's dark side, known as Shadow Trap, who we end up having to fight in different forms numerous times. He was very, very tough. In the end though, we achieve gathering the information source for Jack. Within this information is knowledge of how to deactivate Hyperion technology, and so Jack deactivates all Claptrap units. The only reason that Claptrap himself survives is because of Shadow Claptrap giving him an overpowering strength to overcome being deactivated. Sir Hammerlock then finds and repairs Claptrap, and voila, we find him amongst the wastelands in Borderlands 2. Tales from the Borderlands. At first, I wasn't going to play Tales from the Borderlands. It just really isn't my style of game, and I honestly thought I was going to hate it. But after seeing some people online stating it's a true Borderlands game, I thought I'd give it a shot, and immediately I was hooked. I'd heard so much about Handsome Jack before making this video, but in my opinion, as great as Handsome Jack is, I think Reese and Fiona are just as good. In this game, at least. It absolutely shocked me how well this was made. Genuinely, I think the characters and the story is more interesting than the majority of shows and movies coming out now on streaming services. And here, you even get to make your own choices about what the character should say and do. And hilariously, there's even a little romance. And the fact that they managed to pull off romance in a Borderlands game is pretty damn impressive. I never would have thought by making this video, Tales from the Borderlands is a new favorite game of mine. Every bit of comedy struck a laugh, and this is by far the funniest video game I've ever played. It fleshed out the world and it even added more onto old characters without doing them a disservice. But I think the biggest takeaway is just how good these characters are written. How Borderlands manages to find comedy and make it as unpredictable as it is genuinely very impressive. There is a fine line between cringing and laughing with this type of comedy, but I never cringed once. But underneath all this comedy, these characters have dreams, motivations, and an arc. They're relatable. They are, well, fully fledged out human character. Oh, and this douchebag off is one of my favorite moments in the Borderlands games. New Tales from the Borderlands. Now, whilst I'm absolutely fawning over Tales from the Borderlands, I should quickly cover New Tales from the Borderlands, by far the worst game in the Borderlands franchise. I played 40 minutes of it and I was very disinterested and confused. Everything that was great in the original was switched on its head and done very poorly. I was not interested in the characters, the dialogue, nor the story. The game in general felt very off, so I went on YouTube and started watching an Eruption Fang video and read the comments. Immediately, I understood this game would only ruin characters, plot points, and even the overall world of Borderlands for me. So like much of the community, I retconned this game. Borderlands 3 seems to be pretty divisive amongst the community, but most people agree the gameplay with the incredibly fun and unique weapons, awesome and innovating skill actions, and more diverse and useful skill trees is the peak of Borderlands gameplay. But most also agree the story is terrible. Now, I kind of like the story of Borderlands 3. For me, it's the characters and the dialogue that really takes a toll on this game. Remember how I mentioned the style of comedy used in Borderlands runs a fine line between hilarious and cringe? Well, Borderlands 3's comedy felt incredibly forced and predictable, making it cringe and quite frankly very annoying. But this isn't the only issue I had with this game. It felt like it really lacked the original atmosphere of Borderlands. A lot of it feels generic within the video game world. Where Borderlands was originally grounded in the weird, grim, and snarky, this game feels like it was made for children and for a more wide and general audience, causing it to lack a lot of flavor and artistic merit. But there is a massive saving grace: the DLC. I played Bounty of Blood, Love Guns and Tentacles, and Psycho Krieg and the fantastic Fustercluck, and everything I just covered about the game's atmosphere and artistic flavor was certainly redeemed through these DLC, especially Bounty of Blood. Bounty of Blood seemed to strip away most of the things I dislike about Borderlands 3, and it added all the things I do like. We land on a planet to accept a bounty to stop the Devil Riders, a gang of outlaws who are trying to take over this hostile planet. Oh yeah, and there's dinosaurs called devils on this planet. Anyway, we run into Rose, who's very cool but mysterious. Also, she's very intense. She puts down her pet Toga, who she raised from birth without even a hesitation. She then helps us to the city, from which we learn she is in fact the leader of the Devil Riders, so we need to kill her. And in the end, we do so, saving the town and getting some crazy good loot as a reward. But anyway, my point is, the story doesn't have much humor, except for the odd bar fight. And the entire story is narrated by a man called the Liar, which gives a far more serious and compelling tone to the story. One thing I really didn't like about Borderlands 3 is all the travel to other planets. I like Pandora, but there's something really appealing about this planet opposed to the others in the main story. Gehenna is a planet with an old-fashioned Wild West and Japanese aesthetic, which weirdly works. I would happily play an entire game just exploring this planet and its characters. As a massive fan of H.P. Lovecraft's work, I just had to play Love, Guns, and Tentacles. Unfortunately, it kind of suffered from the same issues of the main Borderlands story, with too many jokes and bad dialogue. But Mancubus Bloodtooth was hilarious, and I always love a dark and creepy aesthetic in Borderlands. Now, Psycho Krieg and the Fantastic Fussercluck was insane, fun, and sad. We go into Krieg's mind to try and understand him, and we learn about his future and how his insanity is the only reason he still lives, and also how this insanity has caused crippling insecurities, and also the inability to articulate to his crush, Maya, who has now died, and so he feels even more sadness for her. Now, I understand some of Krieg's lore from Borderlands 2 was retconned, and people like that lore better, but I never learnt that lore, so I'm lucky, I guess. I did wish Psycho Krieg's dialogue was a bit better though, and not so dumb, and instead personify him. This DLC is very creative and fun, but also weird and creepy. The bosses were insane, but at the end of the day, Krieg is left battling himself and becoming a better version of himself. So back to the main story. Long story short, two powerful sirens known as the Calypso twins, who also happen to be cringy content creators, have figured out they have the ability to absorb Vault monsters' powers. They are incredibly powerful, and as a result, they kill Maya and also absorb Lilith's siren powers. At this stage, there's rumor of a great vault, and thus a great monster. The Calypso twins want to absorb its power to become gods. This great vault happens to actually be Pandora itself, and the moon is the vault key. We end up killing one of the twins, Troy, but this only makes Tyrene stronger as she absorbs his power. We then get a message from Typhon, the very first Vault Hunter, who accidentally crash landed on the Iridian's home planet long ago. I actually really like Typhon as a character. Also, he happens to be Troy and Tyrene's father, which was a nice twist. So in the end, Tyrene opens the Great Vault and takes the power of the Destroyer. Even an Eater of Worlds cannot stop us, and so we save the world. However, there's still an issue. The Vault Key, aka the Moon, is destroying Pandora. So Lilith sacrifices herself by using her siren powers to destroy the moon. Unfortunately, this would have killed all its inhabitants. Truly, if Zappadon actually destroyed the moon in the pre-sequel, none of this would have happened. So, my overall thoughts. I bloody enjoyed this. A lot. I will now always look on Borderlands fondly, and I'm really looking forward to any new Borderlands content. But most importantly, I now understand my father's love for the game. P.S. Tales of the Borderlands is something special.
Then activate.
So you're the max level, you can't go up anymore.
No. And then what I like to do is follow just stand here.
Oh yeah, that's sick.
Yeah. And then I'll put this gun on again, and it will increase.
Oh my
damage.
god, that is so overpowered.
Yeah. I could just stand and sit here and have some lunch and just.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah. But I like killing things too myself.